Good afternoon and welcome to the Hoosier Huddle after the dust settles on the old Oaken bucket game. IU fell 30-16 to Purdue, which clinched Purdue the Big Ten West. It also ended IU season at 4-8, 2-7 in the Big Ten. We'll talk about the season as a whole later in the offseason. Probably next week, we'll try and get Andy Graham, Matt Weaver, and some of us to do a big after the dust settles show. Then this is strictly going to be about the bucket game. Alex, I thought the bucket game couldn't start any better for IU. They held Purdue to a field goal on a drive that, man, it looked like Purdue was going to go off right off the bat and score a touchdown. IU comes back, two plays on their first drive. Jalen Lucas takes it down the sideline on a really nice play call on that option pitch from Dexter Williams. They get the ball back. They're driving. Ball, I think, was at the 25. Dexter Williams rolls out to his left, tries to make a cut, goes down in a lot of pain, gets carted off, and IU misses a field goal from there. We'll talk about special teams as well. But that Dexter Williams injury, kind of like the Micah McFadden ejection against Cincinnati, just took the air out of the balloon, out of the stadium. And you put in Connor Bazelak, which I know doesn't make sense to you. It doesn't really make sense to me. Guy's been checked out for a couple weeks and things like that. And I'd feel a lot better losing with Sorsby than with Connor Bazelak. But the game totally changed on there. IU takes a 7-3 lead into halftime. Purdue scores. I know you said in our group chat it seemed like the first team to 10 was going to win. If Purdue got to 10, it was game over, and that basically was all she wrote. To me, I thought the game came down to red zone efficiency, and outside of the touchdown at the buzzer from IU was 1 for 3 with 3 points. So they were 2 for 4 with 9 points in the red zone. If Charles Campbell kicks a couple field goals, or even if IU scores touchdowns, it's a whole new ball game. I think just if Dexter Williams in there, I really think IU wins that game. I think you go down and score a touchdown on that drive, uh, and running the ball. You keep the ball out of Purdue's offensive hands as much as possible, and they win. What were your takeaways from yesterday?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is they were super shorthanded, especially on defense. And then obviously the unfortunate injury to Dex changes the whole kind of game plan on offense, obviously. But I think you saw more fight and more character than you saw in the bucket game last year when the season was over, also. So that in itself, obviously positive. I think you had guys still playing hard. So last year couldn't really say that. So I think just the overall effort was better, which is good. Staying up on defense, linebacker depth was challenged again. But I said it going into the week and going into yesterday that Purdue was going to come out and challenge IU's secondary. They don't care about the previous accolades or how much experience, blah, blah, blah. They were not ready to play. 16 yards per completion, couple pass interferences. I don't know how you let Charlie Jones get that wide open to essentially ice the game. Secondary was not ready to play, and that was pretty much the story of the game. With or without Dexter Williams, I think based on how the secondary played, especially in the second half, you're probably not winning that game. So unfortunate. IU outgained the team though. So lots I really did like, especially up front. I thought the offensive line played their best 2 games of the season the last 2 weeks, which is good. That's what you want teams to do. But that's not something we saw last year. So offensive line, I thought for the most part was pretty good. 3 sacks from the defensive line was better. I think you brought a little more pressure. You got a little more creative with it. Nice to see Bryant, have a couple sacks and Elliott have a sack in their last games. So that was great. But it was the problem all season long was the secondary. Probably besides the offensive line, it was the most glaring issue for IU. And in a game where you knew they were going to come out and throw the ball, just couldn't really overcome that. So O'Connell was 18 to 29, 290, 2 touchdowns, no picks. rarely any super tight windows, a lot of soft coverage again, is what it is. But I thought the running game for IU was really good, Sam. And I think hopefully it seems like Allen kind of realizes now that this is what Bell wants to do. This is what you have to do to win. Because you did see good things on offense again when Dex was in there. But running game, even when Basilak was in there, I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, I think you found the recipe for next year. It's a mobile quarterback. We'll see what the injury to Dexter Williams is. Hopefully, he could be back for spring practice. Allen said it was not an ACL injury. Uh, he did say it was a knee injury, but I don't know. I'm not convinced it was the knee. I think it's more of a fracture. You don't see people react like that on a knee all that much.
Yeah, in the air
Maybe,
cast.
yeah, in the air cast, maybe it's a dislocation. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. It's just speculation. Um, but we'll see if they announce anything. I doubt it, unless Dex wants it out and things like that. It's, to be honest, it's basketball season and football's going to go into hiding like they always do. And they'll reemerge maybe in the spring. But I thought they found the formula yesterday. Mobile quarterback, move him out of the pocket, um, get Jalen Lucas the ball on the edge because he was unstoppable on the edge. You use Josh Henderson, Sean Shivers had his two best games. I thought running the ball against Michigan State and Purdue.
Yeah,
Offensive line, I thought played really well. And I think that goes to, I don't expect Rod Carey to come back. I think he's, looking for bigger jobs in terms of being a coordinator or a head coach again. But just the improvement, and you could throw out Penn State and Ohio State, um, but the improvement in the run game from, Maryland, you throw out Rutgers because that was just an awful game. Uh, but from Maryland, more often than not, the offensive line in the second half of the season, once they made that change, looked improved. And it's not a talent issue. It's not an athleticism issue. It was a coaching issue. And people have been saying that for 2 years. And look, I'm not calling Tom Allen blameless in this whole 4-8 season. He's not. He held on to Darren Hiller too long. He lost a running back coach probably because of it. And you lost some games because of it, and you probably lost a bowl berth because of it. But the problems run a lot deeper than Tom Allen, and we'll get to that both on this show a little bit and on our season wrap up. But the formula is there: mobile quarterback, run the ball. You saw it if you watched the Apple Cup last night. Michael Penix went for the offensive hat trick: passing touchdown, rushing touchdown, and a receiving
it's
touchdown.
sweet. It was sweet. Yeah,
So, um, even though Washington's, I think, 10-2, not playing for a Pac-12 championship, I hope they give him some Heisman love because he deserves it. But you saw it, and Cam Ward on Washington State on the other side. It's you need that dual threat. I think IU goes to the portal, and you don't need a guy from the FBS. You don't. You need the best mobile player you could get. And if you have to go to the FCS level or maybe a Division II level, you go find the guy who could run and throw, bring him in, work him out if you can, and see how it fits. Because I don't see if Connor Bazelak is part of this team next year. One, I don't know what he's doing, and two, I don't know what IU is doing. I know that you have the athletes' bill of rights and all that stuff, but there's a way to say, hey, you're not going to be the starter next year. You don't fit our offense, and you're not going to play. So the choice is yours. You could stay, sit on the bench, or you could go and we'll try and find you someplace to go play. But I think the Connor Bazelak experiment needs to be over, and you found what works. And I think it sucks that it happened so late in the year, but you found the winning formula. And now it's okay. Now you got to go into the off season, figure out your NIL money, figure out spring practice, who's healthy, who's coming back, figure out who's coming in through the portal, figure out recruiting on another year. I mean, it's thankfully they beat Michigan State and you could take around the spittoon, but another 4-8 type of season. Uh, Tough on recruit. It's going to be a long off season, and IU has a lot to cut out. It's not all on the coaches. It's the athletic department has to figure this stuff out too. I don't expect Scott Dolson to make a state of the program announcement unless he's making a coaching change, and I don't think IU fans should want him to. After his performance in August, when he came up, before the football season, and every other department in, in the Big Ten is like, oh my God, we got all this money. Scott Dawson, yeah, it's kind of already spent. Just no excitement, no pizzazz. I don't know if you put him, unless it's an absolute emergency, I don't think you put him in front of the media. And I honestly don't really care what he has to say. I don't. He's going to say the same old stuff and things like that. But we'll get into that next week. Defensively, Alex, you talked on the secondary. I think that's the biggest disappointment of the season. It's a bigger disappointment than the quarterback play, than the offensive line, than Tom Allen. The this is the position group that you thought, if you could bet the farm on one position group holding their own, it would probably be the secondary. And they got absolutely torched. And
Yep.
yeah, Tywin Mullen played better the last few weeks, but yeah, the one guy you couldn't let beat you was Charlie Jones, and he beat you. Now, the first play where he went for 58 yards, great block on the offensive line to spring him. And then Jonathan Haynes gets hurt, and you're playing Bryson Bonds. I don't. He just gets lost. He's running
Yeah,
free. It kind of looks.
still,
It can't happen. It can't happen.
yeah,
Um, it can't happen. You have Jalen Williams getting penalties. I mean, one penalty probably saves the touchdown, but your technique is you're getting beat. That's a sixth year, fifth year senior who is the active leader in interceptions getting burned off the line. So there's a malfunction there. They got to figure that out. Is it coaching? Is it talent? And then I think another big offseason thing is the strength and conditioning program. You got to figure out why these injuries are happening. Dexter Williams is a non-contact injury. They wouldn't show a replay in the booth on TV, or at least not in the time that I looked up there. It just looked like he planted, went the wrong way, or went one way, his leg went the other way, and that's just not how your body works. Um,
yeah. I don't think like Deck specifically. I don't think that's a strength and conditioning thing. I think that's just one of those,
yeah,
broke is something on turf, which we've seen in the NFL and at other places this year. Maybe that's a
that,
separate conversation, but a lot of
that
big
is a
marquee
separate
programs.
conference. It is a
I mean,
separate
a lot
conversation.
of the bigger programs have turf, so I don't think necessarily. But you saw Michigan last year lost a couple guys on their turf field, but yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at everything, and we'll get into it more again next week or whenever we talk about the season as a whole and the program as a whole. But I think you have to evaluate everything. Brandon Shelby's been at IU for a while, has had lots of great players come through, has recruited really well.
Players
Total
love him
failure
too.
this. They do,
Players love
but
him too. So
total
and
failure this year. So not what you want, not ideal. I don't know, but yeah, Aaron Wellman, strength and conditioning coach, and the staff in general. I think you have to look at that. Uh, it's not necessarily the season-ending ones that are concerning, but it's the
it's the
Matt
hams.
Holtz are hurt, the Aaron Casey's are hurt, the lingering week to week things.
Yeah,
Those are the things
DJ.
I just can't afford to have. We don't have the depth.
Yeah,
DJ
I mean,
Matthews always in and out, things
I mean,
like
I know.
that. IU doesn't have that depth still to overcome those.
No, and not many teams do. But I don't remember, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember a year IU doesn't release injury news, but there hasn't been like a hamstring injury that lingers. And it's been like that all year. AJ Barner was banged up, he had issues, these soft tissue issues that didn't happen under Dave Ballou and Dr. Ray are popping up again. So they paid Aaron Wellman a lot of money. I don't know if he's been worth it, but it's definitely every aspect of this program, from game day operations to parking operations to strength and conditioning to the head coach needs to be evaluated. And they need to sit down. They have a week where they can't go out and recruit. You have a week where your AD has to sit down with your head coach, and you need a vision. Scott Dolson needs a vision for this program, and he needs to spell it out. Does he need to spell it out to the public? Not right now, but you need to sit down with Tom Allen and say, what are we doing? And if you have to ask you the question that is Tom Allen the guy, you hope there's no hesitation in the answer. It's either yes or no. It's not. We'll see. I mean, look, They're not paying his $25.5 million buyout, so it's a moot point. And we'll go back to those questions that I asked a couple weeks ago. Has the Allen era run its course? Maybe. I feel a lot better than I did a couple weeks ago uh, with the win over Michigan State, but that could have been fool's gold too. But the game against Purdue, how you have, and I know people gave me crap about it on Twitter with the cheerleaders wearing black, and it goes deeper. Apparently, there was a contract with Adidas. Order got canceled, and the athletic department just didn't care. But how you put your cheerleaders in black sweatsuits against Purdue or against anybody, black is not an IU color, and that goes on the sideline for football coaches as well. Get rid of the black stuff. I don't mind having the black trim and the black face masks on the jerseys, but put the coaching staff in crimson shirts. Put the cheerleaders in cream and crimson. They have really nice the fleece sweatshirts, quarter zips. It's all that little stuff. It's playing the rock and roll music after Purdue scores a touchdown to drown out the band and the Purdue fans. And I guarantee you, IU is going to beat their chest that they had an announced attendance of over 50,000 people yesterday. And I'll give credit to the students; they showed up, and everybody, it was a bad day for the move the bucket game off the last weekend crowd, because the students showed up, but there were also about 30,000 Purdue fans there. And it is what it is. They had a division title on the line. I use at the end of a crappy season. It is what it is. But you're playing I Love Rock and Roll right after a Purdue touchdown. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. I don't
It's the
know. I
little
think,
things.
yeah, all that matters. And I was at the Northern Illinois versus Akron game earlier in the day yesterday. NIU had a crap season, but a
I
lot of
heard
those same things where
LeBron was a kid from Akron.
yeah, they're Akron's bus. They had the LeBron logo and a quote from him on there, so it was kind of interesting. But no affiliation to the school, but or football. But I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of those things that I think you have to look at. And again, I think we can talk more about it in the off season, and I'd love to kind of hear from some fans so we could do, spaces or live shows or something. But
Yep.
I don't know. It is what it is, and it always will be, I feel like. So I'm bummed they lost. Obviously, I always am. But yeah, I think you have to do a total evaluation of everything that football touches. Will they do that? I don't know. But you have to, good programs do that every year. They look at
Yep.
every single thing that goes on with football, with the athletic department, and make changes and make decisions based on that. And I'm sure they do that, and I'm sure there's meetings after the season with a bunch of different departments and the coaching staff. But you have to do it,
Yeah.
and I think
And
you
you have
do
to
have.
look at the rest of the Big Ten too. You just Nebraska just hired Matt Rule. Looks like Wisconsin's going to get Luke Fickle, so they upgrading coaches, and are spending the money. So it's you have to look at everything. And I want to go back to the game, Alex, and talk about the
Yeah,
special teams. And Charles Campbell, he went through senior day yesterday. He does have a COVID year left. I think he's going to try and test the pro waters. He's had some really big kicks for IU, but man, the last 2 weeks, you miss a field goal against Purdue, and the weather's not that bad. You have two blocked, one against Michigan State, one against Purdue. Um, and special teams, I don't know. I give them probably a B minus, maybe a C plus. Look, they had great returns of Jalen Lucas. They got bailed out on that throw, which I
Yeah,
might
that
have
was
dropped my
wild.
grade to like an F minus.
Yeah,
I,
that
I
was
get it though.
terrible.
I get it. They were kicking away from Jalen Lucas. You needed a spark, but man, that was almost a total disaster. Not Hayden Whitehead. James Evans improved vastly, became a real weapon. But then there were the other things. You had two pump blocks, three field goal blocks. You it, it's penalties on returns that didn't help. You have no depth at punt returner. You put Connor Delp back there, and he had some really really bad reads on punts as well. And then you have the kickoff guy. You switch between Campbell and Chris Freeman. Freeman's booted a couple big kicks out of bounds. It just, there were some bright spots, but they're also like if IU hits those two field goals, you're in a one score game, and then who knows?
Yeah, probably shouldn't have even kicked those anyway, but different, IU is going to struggle, especially with the drastic difference in the quarterback, you know, style and play when Dexter got hurt. You need to get touchdowns, and you're not going to get down there a ton. Probably should have gone for it. I think one of them's like a 4th and 3, but I don't know. The change on offense I liked, even when Bazelak was in there. They slowed down, which I thought
Yep,
was good, and you could see that immediately kind of make positive impacts. They did it against Michigan State too. So
yep,
again, I talked about it when we declared the season over or whatever before Halloween, which sucks. The thing that I wanted and was like banging the drum for was I want to see a heartbeat on the coaching staff and an ability to decipher what's not working and make changes. I think they did that. I think I
yep,
saw, especially on offense, I saw clear changes to scheme, personnel, tempo. I think all of those things were good. And again, I think those are things as you get into spring ball and fall camp. I think the roster will go through a lot of changes, and I think
yep,
that's going to be not an IU thing, but I think anybody that doesn't have a superb season, I think your roster is going to go through tons of change. So
yep,
when IU inevitably loses guys to the portal, probably starting like this coming week, all the for next week, I guess after the dead period, but you're going to hear all the fans, oh my God, the season's over. You got to fire Allen. I can't believe we're losing guys to the portal. That's going to happen everywhere. So the same guy you get then from a different Power Five school that you're all excited about because he has untapped potential or he didn't have a fair shot at whatever school he was at. That's the same thing that those fans are saying from the school he just left. That the
yeah,
sky is falling. I can't believe we lost that guy. It's going to
yep.
happen. So are there guys that you probably can't lose from an optics, a production, and a health of the program standpoint? Yeah. And I think you know who those two are, and there's a couple true freshmen you really want to keep. Hopefully, the new NIL fund helps do that. And again, we'll talk more about the roster and stuff next week because we want to keep this kind of game specific. But yeah, I mean, there were things I liked in the closing stretch of the season, despite ending 4-8, that I think are good, that I think you can build upon. But there are some glaring weaknesses, flaws, whatever you want to call it, that are
Issues.
recurring and have been recurring even when IU had some good seasons under Tom Allen. And I think complacency in college football is killer. You have to look at everything. And I think you have to look at the entire coaching staff this offseason and maybe make some tough decisions. I know you had a lot of new coaches. Paul Randolph was new on the defensive line. Chad Wilt, obviously, D coordinator slash linebackers. Adam Henry, wide receiver, and then Craig Johnson, running back. But that back end of the defense, man, was bad this year. It was really bad. And
Yep.
heading into the season, you'd already said it, but you felt like that was the group that you could rely on, that you knew would show up, play solid football every week.
Give you a
It
chance to win.
just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that was shocking to me. I think that was probably the most disappointing part of the season, obviously, besides not, winning more than 4 games. But again, yesterday, just soft coverage, missed assignments, getting crossed up on deep post routes, just things like that, not taking the ball away again. Just the same things that have been happening all year for such an experienced group, really troubling. So tough. I don't know. So otherwise on defense, I thought the tackling did improve later in the season. Alan, I think, mentioned a couple times that they were going to start being more physical in practice and actually tackling instead of just tackling the dummies or pads or whatever. I think that improved. Your run defense was really good yesterday. You held them to under 100 yards, or I guess a little over 100 yards, not counting sacks. But I thought that was good. It just the inability to, and you watch some of these other games. Like I was watching USC Notre Dame, and then I watched the Apple Cup too. And I've said it all year. IU, and it changed a little bit with Dexter, so I'll kind of come back around on this. But IU's inability, especially on offense, to have easy plays or say, when I need 5 yards or I need a first down or I need a big play in the red zone, this is kind of our identity, or this is what we're going to run, or this is who we're going to target. IU did not have that all season on offense. And if you want to win games, there are so many easy plays in college football that you just have to have and count on. IU didn't really have any of those all season. There were some with Cam Camper early in the season, but an inability again this season to kind of have, yep, okay, I know if we need a first down, these 3 plays always work for us. This guy always gets it to there for us. That's tough. And it's tough to win games like that. And it was an issue all season again, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's you saw Purdue do it with Payne Durham. Basically, just go run 5 yards, turn around, and Aiden O'Connell will hit you with the ball. And it's either a 5 yard gain if they're playing tight, or a 10 yard game, and they got multiple first downs like that. And to me, I don't feel as bad as last year. Last year was, I mean, I didn't want to talk football for like 6 months, but you saw improvement, and yeah, I know people are going to do mental gymnastics about that they're 4-8 and 2-7 and no bowl again this year. You doubled your win total from 2021. You won 2 conference games. You won a rivalry game, and you know what? You were pretty competitive down the stretch, which they weren't in 2021. 21-21 team mailed it in. If that had happened again this year, yeah, we're sitting here going, somebody better pony up the 25.5 million, because this thing is over. Um, I think there's some things to build upon. Like you said, the portal is going to be huge. I've already seen people going through the schedule for next year, predicting wins and losses. Worthless. It's a waste of your
Yeah.
time. You have no idea who's coming back. You have no idea what Dexter Williams' injury status is, if he'll be back for spring practice, because that will be huge. And this is what happened where I thought, Michael Penix lost a little bit. Every offseason, he was hurt, whether it be an ACL, 2 ACLs, a shoulder, things like that. He was hurt. And those are super important reps. And he was hurt for bowl practices too. And it really stunts your development. So this would be, the second spring practice that Dexter Williams misses because of injury, if it's that kind of catastrophic injury. And, maybe he gets passed up by Brandon Sorsby. Maybe he gets passed up by Brock Lowry if he's in for spring. It's just, you have no idea what's going to happen in this program 24 hours after the Purdue game, because the schedule came out.
Yeah, and that goes the same with the other teams you're going to play. Again,
Yeah.
roster turnover every year, year to year, is going to be huge. So the positives looking ahead to next year, non-conference maybe not as bad.
I hate that Louisville game
I
in
don't like it either.
Indianapolis.
We talk about it every year, but would have been a different season had you have played Akron instead of Cincinnati.
Yep.
But I don't know. You open with Ohio State, which sucks, but It's also a good measuring stick. Ohio State will look probably very different next year. I don't know. And everyone's already, oh, Dexter, Dexter, Dexter. Look, I think what you saw from Dexter Williams was good, and you could see the flashes. I mean, the dude didn't really throw the ball. We don't really know what we have.
No, which is why you
Regardless of the
really need
injury,
him for
who's
spring practice.
IU is gonna hit the portal hard anyway, probably
Yep.
for a quarterback. Regardless of the Dexter Williams injury, I think now you can literally show a guy this is the system we wanted to run. You can see how it would work. Here are the keys. Go nuts. So everyone's like, oh, obviously you want everyone to stay healthy. Unfortunately, not a part of football, which it
No.
was. But IU was going to be portal shopping for a dual threat quarterback anyway to challenge Dexter Williams, Sorsby, Brock Lowry, whoever.
Yep.
Now I think you potentially put yourself in a better position to get a bigger name, more talented guy. That's the unfortunate part, with the injury, but you could say, hey, we're going to have a guy that's not practicing all spring or fall, potentially just totally speculating, but maybe that helps you land a better quarterback. Who knows? But I think the system looked better. I think you could see why Tom Allen liked Walt Bell and wanted Walt Bell. I think he kind of calmed a lot of people's frustrations and nerves after they made the switch to a mobile quarterback. I think people could see it, right? You can see this is
I think it
kind of the vision. A lot of the running
depends on the
game
people,
opened
but
up.
yes.
Well, yeah, but you could see the running game open up. You could see different things. You could see the flashes and the potential for like, yeah, this offense could be fine.
Yeah, I
This
thought the
offense
game
could
plan
you could win
yesterday was
6 games with
great.
this.
The game plan was great, and that's what you envision. This is why I was shocked that Connor Bazelak was like the unanimous starter because you have Jack Tuttle who could run, and I know whatever Bazelak's
Yeah,
arm is
but you're not.
Bazelak's arm.
That was my thing. Like Tuttle can run. You're not running 15 times a game with Tuttle though. Like that triple option to Lucas yesterday. Jack Tuttle's not running that play. No
No,
shot. Like
but
he's a little bit more mobile, sure, but I don't know.
no, the fact that he didn't get a shot before Penn State is, that's another head scratcher. And some people say, well, Basilak's arm's better. Great. So you could throw it into the 15th row of the stands instead of the fifth row. Um, he's inaccurate, and I thought the Cincinnati game broke him. Uh, he just wasn't the same after that. He's gun shy, backing out of the pocket. Um, it, but yeah, it's you're not going to a bowl game. You had like a 1% shot if you beat Purdue to go to a bowl. You needed a lot of teams to lose, and you're 46 in the APR. Anyway, let's see. You had faith in Brandon Sorsby to be the backup against Penn State. Let's see what the kids got. That's the only thing that really, outside of losing to Purdue and having to have Purdue fans all down in Indy this week for the Big Ten championship game. That really, what is the most upsetting part was roll with Sorsby. Just roll with him because Baselak's done. As you said,
Yeah.
the game was done. The
Well,
season's
I get
done.
it when it was close going with Bazelak. I get that, and I'll defend that. I think they
Yeah,
looked okay. He looked okay,
mid
but
drive.
at the end of the game, you got to go with Sorsby. The game's over. Don't run Bazelak out there. He almost like self took a safety. Like what the hell was that? But yeah, or right when Dex got hurt, yeah, I think you go with Bazelak, and I think that was fine. He looked
Yeah,
okay. He
you
did,
go to halftime, and then you
yeah,
say, okay, we're get Brandon ready, get into the locker room, and get your quarterbacks coach or whoever, whatever assistants down on the sideline, get Brandon ready for the second half. We get the ball. If we could, I thought it was smart. IU, ran the ball there to end the second quarter. You get the ball, and maybe you bring Sorsby out and you score and you go up, 10-3 or 14-3, and it's a whole different ball game. I just don't like playing a guy who's been looked mentally checked out from this team for a month. Who didn't play against Penn State because of various reasons, but could play against Ohio State the next week. Um, it just that just rubs me the wrong way. And yeah, I'd rather lose with the young guys than lose. Obviously, I'd rather win, but I'd rather lose with the young guys than maybe have a potential at keeping it close in a loss with Basilak. And that just wasn't the case. His throws are again off target. Um, it just not non-competitive. They got lucky and bailed out a couple times on pass interference calls, but again, non-competitive throws. There was throws where guys were open and he bounced them or airmailed them or did everything but throw it to the receiver. So disappointing loss to Purdue. Sucks that they won the West Division, but guess what? The West Division sucks. Maybe that'll change with some coaching talent infusion with Matt Rule and Luke Fickle going to Wisconsin, but divisions will be gone here in the next year or two. So we'll see. It's up to Indiana to catch up and get a lay of the land and see what's going on and figure it out. But we'll get into that next week. Alex, final thoughts on the bucket game.
Yeah, two years in a row now they blew your doors off. So say what you want about the injury, the score, whatever, but the inability to have depth to overcome those things has been a troubling issue during the Tom Allen era. Stinks. And I said it before the season, I think. A lot of people might be mad at me, but I would kill for what Purdue has. Incredibly stable, clear identity, good fan support, solid roster. And boom,
Great
they go
fan support.
8-4. They go 8-4, win the West, and go to Indy. So they beat everyone saying, "Oh, the West sucks. The West sucks." They beat Maryland. They beat Nebraska. So we didn't do that, and they're 8-4 and going to Indy at least, and then probably a nice bowl game. So I said that they have a clear identity that Jeff Brom does not deviate from. That
No.
helps you recruit a roster that you know is going to have depth because you know exactly what you're running and what you want to run and not changing defenses, not changing your offense with different quarterbacks. They're so stable. So I think IU has a lot to learn from our northerly neighbors, but sucks. It was nice to see Bryant Fitzgerald, Lance Bryant, DeMarcus Elliott have nice games. Those guys were awesome, and they had awesome moments for IU. So regardless of the last 2 years, I think most of the seniors leaving, I'm going to choose to remember, their big plays and their big wins because there were a lot of really good wins for that class. Remember, Bryant Fitzgerald was pretty highly recruited and then had to sit out his first year because of that eligibility issue. And then
Another
he went on to
athletic
have a heck of a
department
career.
faux pas.
He had a heck of a career. So obviously we'll miss the seniors. We appreciate them choosing IU and giving us their blood, sweat, and tears and all their time and effort and energy. But yeah, I think now you go into another pretty critical offseason where you're going to have tons of new faces coming from tons of new places. I think that's good, though. I think that's exciting. And I think complacency for IU this offseason would be really, really boneheaded. I think you have to look at everything. You have to evaluate everything. You have to ask yourself why we won 6 games in the last 2 years combined and why 4 of those were Idaho and Western Kentucky. So I think you have to look at that. And you were a couple plays away from like being 2-10 again. You were probably a couple plays away from winning 6 or 7 games, which is crazy to even think about. But life in the Power Five is pretty much on the margins all the time. IU has been on the losing end of the margin quite a bit lately. So it's time to kind of evaluate what you can do to get that extra yard, to add that extra pound, to add that, extra play in the playbook. It's time for IU to look at everything top to bottom, roster, scheme, coaching staff, how they practice, when they practice, all those kinds of things. I think it's imperative that they kind of look at all of that because it's probably now a make or break year for coach. So you go into a year, buyout or not, I think you have a long off season now, and people are going to expect this team to look and play a lot differently next year. So I don't think
Yep.
you can say anymore that had to make a coaching change or I knew that didn't work. It's what it would be year 7 next year.
Yes.
You have experience running a program now, and it's time to win again. You had 2 really good seasons. It's time to put up or shut up next year. So I think that'll be kind of the theme of the off season. I like all the stuff he does with the one word and all that. But if you don't win, it's bullshit. Nobody cares. So you gotta look at everything that you do and you have to win. So from now until September, whatever, that should be the main focus. Hopefully it is. But IU has a lot of work to do to reshape the roster, reshape the coaching staff, and form some sort of identity because I think they lost what made them great in 19 and 20. So we'll see.
Yeah, the biggest move in the offseason to me right now is who you hire as offensive line coach, because clearly that made a difference. Um, who
Well,
you go hire.
I think you need a portal quarterback, but yes, I think those things will go hand in hand.
Yeah,
Obviously,
I think right now the biggest thing is because you could. It's the end of the season. You could contact agents and all that stuff. Number one priority for me right now is uh, hiring your offensive line coach,
Mhm.
making it a quality hire. Hopefully, your athletic director says, "What do you need to get a quality offensive line coach?" Not, here's 500 grand, go get whoever you could get, which I wouldn't be shocked if Scott Dolson did, but go get a quality offensive line coach. Go look at some of these group of 5 level staffs who have good offensive lines. Maybe some of these staffs who got fired.
Yeah, I
Stanford.
think just backtracking, like I don't think he gives him a set. Here's your offensive line coach budget. I'm sure Allen gets to choose. Here's your pool for assistants. Spend it how you need to. But if you don't want to pay the buyout next year, you need to increase that pool. You have to attract guys. So if you don't want to pay the $20 million or whatever it'll be next year,
Pay.
it's probably smart to throw $2 million more into the assistant coaching pool.
Yeah, go look at your offensive line coaches at Stanford. David Shaw just resigned there. And some of these other places. Stanford's known for having had good offensive lines in the past, and go do that. Then yeah, you got to go hit the transfer portal. Hopefully, you have the NIL money for that. But yet, no stone goes unturned this offseason. Whatever you need to do, I don't have the same sentiment as you. As next year is they're absolutely going to pay the $20 million buyout if they have another 4-8 type of year. Um, but yeah, you got to win. It's time again. It's you got to get back on track, and you schedule did you no favors opening with Ohio State. And then you did yourself no favors with scheduling Louisville and Indianapolis, and things like that. But again, you get Rutgers at home. You're going to Maryland, who's probably going to look very different from this year. Michigan State comes in; their program is kind of reeling, maybe, and you're right there. You finished. I know people think it's another disaster year, but you did take a step forward. You finished 6th in the Big Ten East. You were 1 win away from finishing 5th in the Big Ten East. You're you know, a two one score games against Rutgers and Maryland, from getting 2 more wins. A Nebraska team that you probably should have beat too. So I know fans are going to kill me for it and for moral victories. You're close, but you're
Yeah,
also
and I
far
would
away.
say my argument to that would be
You're close, but you're not
you're
that close.
you're maybe a questionable touchdown call against Illinois away from losing that game.
Oh yeah,
Western
yeah.
Kentucky doesn't
You're
throw a
close to
pick, you lose
being.
that game. Wish
Yeah,
Michigan State basically gave you that game, missing that field goal. So I mean, you're a couple plays away from maybe
2-10
one win.
too. Yeah, I mean, look, going into the season, we talked about this team could go anywhere from 2 wins to 8 wins, and they fell right smack in the middle with 4 wins. Um, but you need to take a look at every aspect of this program, from, uh, you know, communicating on the field, getting plays in. What kind, like you said, what kind of style of offense, what kind of style of defense does Tom Allen give up play calling again and give it to Chad Wilt like he did with Kane Womack that worked very well. There's a lot of things that need to happen that you need to look at on this coaching staff. And listen, he's not going anywhere. I would be shocked if Tom Allen, if Scott Dolson calls a press conference in the next week or two and says, "Hey, we bought out Tom Allen." Shocked. So in that regard, IU is stable there. You go out and you can tell recruits, "I'm here next year. We're going to be here next year. What do we need to do to get you here?" You have to do a better job at identifying talent, evaluating it, and then developing it, because that's where the regression has happened, and most visually in the secondary. So yeah, like you said, do you change your practice times? Do you change your practice structure? Do you go look? This team has taken the foot off the gas a little bit and being physical didn't help with injuries. Okay, so there's no causality there. Go back to being physical. And maybe it doesn't take you 8 weeks to realize that and things like that. There is a lot of learning moments, a lot of learning moments. Now, it may have taken the staff way too long to learn those things.
Year 6, can't have
Yep.
it.
But hopefully they figured it out. You figured out at the end of the season, you needed a mobile quarterback. You figured out at the end of the season, we need to tackle more in practice. So take those things that you learned. You have a year 7, and use it, because your margin for error, your length, your leash, your allowance is going down. I don't I don't think they buy him out after the 2023 season. And maybe the 2024 season unless something crazy happens.
You can't
Um,
you can't be sputtering into the new Big Ten. You can't do
no,
it.
you can't, but I also don't see them spending that money. That's the problem. It's not
Yeah, we'll
that
see. I don't know. I'm just saying going into year 7, it's
oh
gonna
yeah,
the
you
defense
want
is gonna look when you think about the roster, and again, I'm trying to keep this more bucket game specific, but it's hard to do that.
yep,
When you look at the roster, the defense especially is going to look so different and be so young next year.
yep,
You have to, if you believe in the LEO and you believe in your identity and your coaching staff, you really got to lean on it,
yep,
because it is going to be a very different team next year. And maybe that's good, right? 6 wins total the last 2 years. Maybe that's a good thing. But you're going into year 7. The noise is pretty loud and it's not unwarranted. If you believe in your identity and what you're doing, you have to 100% fall back on it. And
yep,
you can't have 2 quarterback systems. You can't trust a coach and then get rid of him halfway through the season. You have to be 100%
yep,
committed to every decision you're going to make this off season, because everything should look different next year. The roster is going to look very different. So
yep.
you have to fall back on what you believe in. So that's all I'll say. I think it's going to be a fascinating offseason. I think new faces will be good, both in the coaching staff and on the roster. But yeah, it's
It's a
Ohio
big off
State at
season.
home in what, 9 months? You got to be ready. 10
Yep.
months, better be ready.
Yep. All right, we'll do our after the dust settles on the season later this week. We'll look to have Andy Graham and maybe Matt Weaver on as well. Alex, thanks for joining us all season on After the Dust Settles. I think this was a valued addition to the Hoosier Huddle content output. Thank you, fans, for joining us after every game, win, lose, or draw. And you keep following us in the offseason, HoosierHuddle.com, on Twitter while it still exists at Hoosier_Huddle. Um, you follow us on Facebook as well and Instagram at Hoosier_Huddle. Have a great holiday weekend, end of the weekend. We'll get back with you next week and enjoy bowl season if you can. We'll root on our IU winter teams, all of them. And we'll get back to you in the spring with hopefully updates from spring practice. So that does it for our final after the dust settles of game of the season. I will talk to you next week about the program overview.